Everybody. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Yep. And joining us today. Hope you're having a good morning. Welcome to the Organizational Grant Program webinar. We're going to cover Year 2 grant reporting and requirements. My name is Rosalind Escobar. I am the Grants Programs Manager, and I oversee the Organizational Grant Program. I'll be hosting this webinar alongside my colleague, Ann Jensen, who is on the line with us today. Let's see. So we have a couple of things we're going to cover, and I'm going to try to get through this within the hour time frame that we have. But just know we're going to be checking the chat so that if there are questions that you want to ask as I'm going through this information, you can feel free to just pop those questions into the chat, or because it's such a small group, also unmuting yourself and asking the question or raising your hand is also fine. We have a small enough group that unmuting and asking your question is fine. Here's our agenda for today. Again, we're reviewing grant reporting requirements for Year 2 for the Organizational Grant Program. So hopefully everyone in this room is in Year 2 of your cycle. If you're not, if you're in Year 1, just know this webinar is going to be is not going to pertain to Year 1 requirements. So if you are in Year 1, you can log out and connect with us over email, and we'll send you the video for the Year 1 requirements. Okay, so we're going to go through grant cycle and requirements today. We'll talk about some of the changes to the reporting forms. We'll review the agreement terms and the grant project budget. We'll talk about how to fill out the reports. I'll give you a preview of the forms on the website. Talk a little bit about the post-report audit, and then again, general questions. You can wait till the end, or you can just through this. So let's get started. Okay, so everything I'm going to go through today is on the web. It's on our website. We have a page specifically about reporting requirements, and we've linked it here. And we're going to send this PowerPoint to you after this webinar. So just know we'll send this out afterwards. You'll have access to this link. You'll also have access to the link for Exhibit B, the OGP terms and instructions, which was part of the grant agreement when we return that to you after everyone signed. Your board members signed, and then our director and our county council signed it, and we sent a copy back to you. So hopefully you have that. If you don't, you can just go to the website and find it here on this web page. And a reminder that all of these forms are submitted through our grant management system. It's a different platform. It's not on our website. It's SurveyMonkey Apply Grant Management System. Here is the URL to get in there. It's apply-lacdac.smapply.org. And yeah, so those are the kind of the big things to make sure you have when you get started. Overview of the timeline. So for this grant report, we are talking about activities that took place between July 1, 2023, when the grant cycle began, and June 30, 2025, when the cycle will be ending. So this is 2 years of activities, and reminder that it's a 2-year grant. These grants are supporting both ongoing projects and programs, as well as general operating expenses. So we know the project scopes. These are all very wide-ranging, broad projects. And by now you're probably familiar with the fact that this funding is very flexible and that it's meant to support your capacity. And we also know that there's a lot of challenges. A lot of our organizations are facing a lot of challenges right now. And so even more reason, we really want to make sure that these grants are flexible, that you can use them in any way that can support your ability to accomplish your mission. And so you'll probably see, or you have seen that our report questions and our requirements have we've really tried to narrow them down to the most pertinent information to kind of reduce the burden on you as you're trying to manage this grant. The main change this year, so you've probably seen, if you've been a current returning grantee, that our report forms have been streamlined every year. And this year, the big change that happened was that in prior years, the year 2 invoice was submitted at the beginning of the year 2 cycle. So we had you go in, log in, and submit it through the grant system after July 1 of whatever the new year was. So this has slightly shifted a little bit. We now have we will be submitting, the year 2 invoice was paid in November of 24. So you submitted your invoice last year, and you hopefully have all have received your year 2 payment. And if you're not quite sure or you're new to this grant, you can connect with us online. You can email us at grants@arts.lacounty.gov, and we can double check on payment. But just know everyone's payment was submitted last year in November of 2024. That's when those payments were processed. So hopefully you've noticed that. Yeah, other than that, the main changes have been just like streamlining of questions, and we've made some updates to some of the cultural equity and inclusion questions, and those may be updated again this year. But for the most part, the report forms remain very similar to last year. To get started, we created this checklist for you all. Just so you know what you might want to make sure you have in place or on your desktop, ready to attach when you start to put this report together on the system. So number 1, let's make sure you have your grant agreement ready, that you have that available. And I believe when you submitted your agreement, you had to also submit an adjusted budget, which we've actually gotten rid of this year. So that's something else that's updated. You may not have access to an adjusted budget anymore because we no longer require it as part of the grant agreement packet. And because we're really trying to focus on being very flexible and allowing for adjustments, just know your budget. If you don't have that old budget from prior years, that's okay. Just just let us know what this budget now 2 years later, what this actually looks like. So have your agreement in place, ready to go. Make sure you have a budget that you can work off of. And then the letter of impact. So if you did not submit a letter with your year 1 report, then you're required to submit your letter to your to the Board of Supervisors in year 2. So this is called the letter of impact. So if you didn't do it in year 1, it's due now. Make sure you have that letter, that PDF, ready to attach or submit with this report. You're going to want to make sure you have proof of recognition. So that is a screenshot of your website, or maybe it's a PDF or a JPEG of your marketing materials that show that you are crediting the Department of Arts and Culture for the investment in the work. So basically showing the logo on your materials. And then at minimum 1, if not more, if not 2 high quality images to submit that kind of document some of the work that has happened over these last 2 years that you're reporting on. Please make sure, be aware that we want to see newer, so we don't want to see images from before the cycle began. And so in some cases, we've noticed that folks will submit from many years ago photos that were submitted with the application. So let's make sure these are newer photos, photos of the work that happened during these last 2 years between 23 and 25. Yeah, and so those are the attachments you're going to want to have ready to go in your on your computer when you start this report. Additionally, a programming zip code list is now required. So this is basically you need a list of all the zip codes where you had not zip codes of your part zip codes of locations where you had a program that was funded with this grant. So let's make sure you have the zip code list also to submit in the grant system as part of your requirements. And we've been doing this since 2018. And basically, it's a way for us to know all the physical locations of programming that have been supported by this grant. So some updates. Remember, we've already had your invoices have been paid out, hopefully by November of 2024. So you've got final payment has already been completed. Reports now for this year two part of the cycle are due by June 2nd, so next Monday. And you're reporting for activities happening over the last 2 years. Terms and instructions is Exhibit B. That's basically it's an outline of everything we're talking about today. And just as an overview, the year two report focuses on the overall outcome of the 2-year project. So you'll report out on the impact that this project and the funding for this project has made on your participants, on the organization. You'll report out on any challenges that you've encountered or that you're foreseeing you will encounter in the future. Just kind of communicating out some overall reflections and addressing any significant lessons that you've learned over these last 2 years. Here is the grant agreement. This is what it looks like. The OGP 23-24 cycle, the agreement looked like this, and you see it's got organization name on it, address, primary contact. It's got the vendor number, which you're going to need for the report, and the purpose and scope of the grant, which, as we were saying earlier, it's now they all say general operating support because we want to make sure that this is flexible as we can make sure we can make it. That said, we are assuming that the scope, that when you talk about the scope of the project, that it's regarding activities that you talked about in your application from 2 years ago. Again, if there's been shifts, that's okay. Just talk about how the project has changed over these last 2 years, how it's been modified. But this is kind of where you're going to get some of the details that you'll need for the report. So the budget, again, I think we've got rid of the adjusted budget. This might have happened last year, but if you have access to it, make sure you're looking at this. This is kind of how when you go into the report forms, there's going to be an expense budget to show how the money was spent, both the grant money, but also the matching money, which reminder that you have a dollar for dollar grant requirement. Basically, any dollar from the grant needs to be matched by another source of money, not in kind, but actual dollars. And so it might be helpful for you to see the 23-24 adjusted grant budget that you submitted with your grant agreement. Again, we know that this may have changed, and that's okay, but you can use this for reference. And again, we are, our requirement is that the grant cannot exceed more than 50% of the cost of the whole project. So obviously that means it's probably a dollar for dollar match, or maybe it's more than a dollar match for each dollar of the grant. And you'll be making sure that you're showing that in your matching expense budget when you fill that out. This is what the reporting, the online grant system where you're going to complete these reports, it looks like this. This is a screenshot of the system. If you're brand new, never been in the system, and we know sometimes there's new folks working on the grants for organizations, and if you don't have your password, just feel free to get in touch with us at grants@arts.lacounty.gov. And we can troubleshoot with you if you need help getting into the system or transferring the application or any submissions to your newer account. We advise that you use a cut and paste method where you complete the narrative portions of the report forms in a Word document and just copy and paste that into the report forms online. Try to do this as early as you can to relieve some stress. I know when folks are working on this last minute, it can be a little nerve-wracking, and I know sometimes there's glitches on the system. So that's another reason to, if you can do it all on a separate document and then you're just cutting and pasting, it makes it a little easier. So yeah, you're going to find your login information, log into the system, and then what you're going to see once you log in is this dashboard. And you're going to find the card that says Manage Your Grant Round 2 for your current grant, and click Start. That will take you here to this new page that has all the required report forms that you're going to need to submit. So those are number one, the narrative questions, the narrative responses to the questions, the matching expense budget table, the supplemental materials questionnaire, which is where you'll attach the letter, the images, all of that in the supplemental materials page. And then the invoice actually will not show up here. I said there were 4 forms, but it's actually just 3. The invoice form will not show up because you've already submitted that invoice form. So it's really just 3 documents that are required. The bottom 2 are optional. You don't even have to open those up. The ones that say optional, just if you don't have any changes, just leave those as is. Just focus on the top 3. And when you've completed each of those, it'll have a green check mark on those forms. Once you've got all 3 of those check marks, you can then click submit on the dashboard. This is what the matching expense table looks like. So again, you're showing how funds were spent from the grant and then also how the matching funds were spent. And they don't have to be the exact same. So line for line, they don't have to be the exact same. You might have some expenses here for the grant, and then the matching source, you use it for marketing or for programming or something else. That's okay. What does need to match are these totals down here. This number has to either match this number or this number needs to be less than this number. And there is an automation here on this box below. You don't fill this out. This is auto-filled. Basically, the system is making sure that that requirement is fulfilled, that there is a $1 for each dollar, there's a matching dollar in this column. And once that's correct and that those requirements are met, then this true and true pop up here. You can provide a little bit more nuance here if you would like to regarding the matching funds, and then you can complete the the form after that. I'll stop here in case there's any questions. All right, sounds like there's not questions. So I'm going to keep going. So let's look at the narrative questions in the application. There are, I believe it's 7 questions altogether. And then there's a couple of questions just about project reach where you're just filling in numbers. But the narrative questions you're seeing here on the screen, first one being a brief description of the project. And remember, there's character counts that you have to watch out for. So there's what's the brief description of the project? And then number 2 is what are the short-term and long working on with this project? Number 3 would be what progress did you make towards those goals, demonstrating whether in qualitative or in quantitative information about what progress you made towards those goals. What were the greatest successes? What was the greatest success that you achieved during this project, during the implementation of this project? How did it impact your organization or community? And then we want to hear a little bit about your challenges. We really want to make sure that that we can be responsive as possible with this grant, and this is the way that we find out what the needs are of our organizations right now that we're supporting. So really, wanting to hear what are some of the challenges that you're encountering in implementing this project? What would have helped you meet those challenges? And then also for those organizations who submitted a policy or plan, a little bit about the process of creating that statement, policy, or plan, and then also, for those who have a budget of over $1 million, you've submitted a plan with your application. We have an additional question for you, which is for you all to describe the progress you've made toward achieving some of the goals that you outlined in your cultural equity and inclusion plan that you submitted. If you're not an organization with an over $1 million budget, you can skip that question. It wouldn't apply to you unless you've submitted a plan. And yeah, when we're reviewing, so the team, the grants and professional development team at the county will be reviewing these grants or these reports. We look at the responses, we share data and trends with leadership. We talk about this information with our research and evaluation team. They use it to understand what's going on in the field, highlight organizational programs, successes, challenges, the general shifts that are happening in the nonprofit arts sector, which we know right now there are many. It's really a way for us to better understand what's going on directly from you all. And so it's really important and helpful information, and helps us kind of gain a deeper understanding of what's going on, and hopefully as a result also helps for us to be able to be more responsive as we're planning our professional development programming. Also, it's a way for us to know like what are the needs out there in terms of professional development. This is the questionnaire I was telling you about where you put in some numbers. So for these 2 years, we ask how many people participated in this project. And so you would provide information about total paid attendance, total free attendance, total attendance in classes and workshops, both paid and unpaid, number of paid staff members who worked on the project, number of paid artists partners who worked on the project, and number of volunteers who worked on the project. This could include board members, unpaid artists. And then if you did partner with any arts organizations, we would not want to know a little bit more about those partnerships. And so reminder that this is really about the focus on the projects that were supported or activities that were supported by the grant. And then a little bit more about demographic reach. If you can kind of check off what communities you've served through this funding, you'll see this questionnaire on the report form where you can kind of just check off what groups you've been able to support through this grant. There's also a text box that you'll see where you can actually kind of provide a little more detail, a little more nuance if you'd like to for this data. Then we get to the supplemental materials checklist. This is where you're providing, you're uploading the copy of the letter of impact to the Board of Supervisors, the proof of recognition, that's the website screenshot or the picture of the marketing materials with our logo on it, the 2 images of some of the activities that happened during these 2 years, the zip code list that we talked about, and I believe that's it under supplemental materials. So again, once you're done with those 3 required forms, you're going to click submit. It's the green button in the dashboard, so that once you're done, we can go in and download and review the report. So remember, we won't know you're done until you click submit in the dashboard. And these are all due June 2nd. So let's make sure everybody, if you have questions, if you're having any trouble getting into those forms, just let us know. And please try to get in touch with us as soon as possible so that you can complete it by Monday the 2nd. Once everyone's done and has completed their reports, we will do an audit of 10% of the cohort. So I believe this cohort is about 227 organizations. We will come back to 22 organizations and request proof of expenses. So just make sure, as a general habit, that you're keeping your financial records, any statements regarding payments made, receipts, signed MOUs or contracts, QuickBooks reports, or any internal reports regarding how you've spent out the money, making sure you've got that in a file in case we come back to you and ask to see those proof of expenses. And now we can take some questions. Feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourself. And for those that are ready to log out, thank you for being here. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Appreciate your time. And for those who want to stay online, feel free to stay online. Thank you so much.
Roz?
Yes.
So I put a question in the chat. Can you clarify more what you're asking for number of paid artist partners? Because there's a question about staff. Is that year-round staff? And
yes.
So if we have seasonal artists, which category am I putting them in?
If they were paid, they would be under paid artists. If they're not part of your staff, then they would be under number of paid artists.
Okay, and then if we had, in addition, some designer contractors, that's going under paid artist partners as well. Yes?
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, only so staff is more organizational staff, and then all artists you want to go in that second category.
Yeah, if they're not if they're not on your payroll, they're not staff members like working full time with your organization, then yeah, they would be under E, the number of paid artists partners.
Okay, but if they are on payroll, just not year round, I guess is why I'm confused.
Either one is fine. And you can provide, again, I think there's a text box underneath if you want to clarify which is which. If they're paid staff members, they're just seasonal, then they would be under paid staff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Roz,
Mhm.
is the letter of impact the same as the thank you letter to the supervisor?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Basically, the difference is what part of the cycle you submit it. So they're both kind of thanking the supervisors for their investment in the program and and in your programming. But it's basically the same thing. It's a letter recognizing their investment.
Okay, we sent one last May. Should we send another one now?
No, you don't have to. If you want to, you can. It's always a good practice to keep them aware of what's going on with you all. So we want to make sure there are as many touch points with the supervisors as possible because we want them to know all the great work that's happening, but it's not
Sure.
required for this grant. If you've already done it, then just submit. If you've already submitted that first letter in your one report, that's okay. You don't need to redo it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie.